Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to episode 104 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. Today, I am talking with Lanada Chanel Duncan, who is returning to the podcast. We are talking about so much: mental health, going for what we want, valuing ourselves, so much. Since the last time I came to you, there was a tragic active shooting incident here in Atlanta, and it has really brought to the forefront again the issue of mental health. And I'm also thinking about mental health so much today because I watched a beautiful series, return of the series of Bridgerton, which is titled this season Queen Charlotte. I hope I'm not giving anything away in saying that it addresses mental health and the love that we should have for each other, and definitely is necessary for people who are in a mental health crisis. So that's that. That's just really weighing on my spirit because I binged watched that series. I started it on Monday and I finished it on Tuesday. Really good. Mental health comes up a lot when these active shooter incidents come about. I don't know anything firsthand. I know what I've read and what I've heard. But Lanada and we talk a little bit about how we were affected by the incident that day, because Lanada is a former employee with the practice where that shooting took place. And it just so happened that she was going to come on the show, which she did. She was actually going to come on that day, but we had to postpone it. So just so happened I wanted to talk to her about her leaving that practice. She left because she was laid off, and she decided that instead of pursuing another job where she was employed by someone else, she would really dive into her own business, which she was already doing part-time at that point. So when she came and we sat down and we had just a really fun chat, we had to talk about that shooting and its impact. And so mental health comes up in our conversation, and mental health is really tied to spirituality and the essence of who we are and how we relate to other people. It just is what it is. It's not something that we talked about years ago, but mental health is real. Depression is real. Sadness is real. I don't know many of us that walk around just happy and joyful all the time, or who are masters at dealing with issues that come up in our lives. It's something that we have to work at. And there are things that we have to heal from and heal around. And so we talk about that in terms of our own personal situations. And again, how that whole incident landed for her. Let's Start Healing is a spiritual podcast. I love talking about God and talking to other people about their spiritual path, how they relate to God, or who they call their higher power. And everyone is welcomed on this podcast as long as they show up in love. You don't have to be a Christian. We don't have to believe the same things. What I have found in conversations way before I started this podcast is that when you get people together and they just start talking about their pure love of God and how they relate to God and how God is incorporated into their lives, something beautiful arises from that. Connections really arise from that. And that's been a part of my whole motivation for wanting to do this podcast. So last week, as we'll talk about, was a lot. And it started out for me driving to the mountains. In my day job, I'm a journalist and I write different stories on different people. And much of my job has been spent covering local government for several cities in northern part of Metro Atlanta. But I have been freed up a little bit to be able to delve into some of the kinds of stories that I really like to write, which is about people or issues that people are dealing with. And a story that I wrote recently was about a guy who right now is hiking the full Appalachian Trail, which starts in Georgia, in the Georgia mountains, and ends in Maine. And it is a 2,200, almost a 2,200 mile hike. So I did a story on this person, Zach Cross, who started the hike after I wrote the story. And then on Monday last week, I met him on the day he was starting the hike. Right before he got on the trail, he was with his wife and his parents and his aunt. And so I was up there with a photographer from the paper that I work for. And it was really a trip. Really meeting Zach and writing his story was awesome. It was so awesome. This particular day was just adventurous because we met at one mountain site and then we were going 8 miles, driving 8 miles to his actual starting point. Well, we were in separate vehicles, and I touch on this in my conversation with Lanada. We were in separate vehicles, and the 8-mile drive, 8.5-mile drive is actually an hour's drive because most of the ride you're on this winding dirt, really narrow, deep dipping road in the mountains. And as I'm telling her about it, I don't think I really described just how treacherous this road felt to me. So I wanted to just drop that little tidbit. And the other thing was that in today's day and age, you don't know what you're encountering up there in the cut, in the woods, in the mountains. You don't know what you're going to encounter if you're by yourself. And we got separated. So there was Zach and his family were in a truck. And then the photographer was on a motorcycle, believe it or not, up there in the mountains. He said he was really in his element. And when we started out, we were maybe a mile on a paved road, winding and curving, and they were going 70 miles an hour. I'm telling you, on this road. Nothing wrong with driving 70. I drive 70 or more. But on this kind of a road, no. And we weren't even on the dirt part yet. So anyway, they lost me because I'm like, I'm just going to take my time and survive. But eventually I had to turn around once we got on the dirt road. And I was by myself and had no signal. And I go into this some. But one of the things that really got me was I felt like other people knew, whether it was people at my job or I don't know that Zach had ever taken that drive up there to that mountain site before, but I felt like other people knew what that ride was like, and I would have liked to have been warned about it. So anywho, that's what was up with that. And so what I'm doing in some of these conversations is I am talking about aging in the workplace, in addition to talking about spirituality and our connection to God. And I really wanted to talk to Lanada, as I mentioned, about her leaving the medical practice that she was working at and deciding that she was just going to dive into full-time her business, which is as a interior designer. So many of us have other ventures going on in our lives while we have a full-time job. And for me, it's this podcast. This is my baby. This is my passion. And it is really something to keep this going. Everything that goes around it is more than recording. It's the editing and the producing of it. It's the social media part, which I feel like I fall short. I don't have to feel like it. I do. I fall short on social media. And there's just so much energy that goes into the thing that we love that has to come secondary to how we pay the bills. And Lanada, she speaks to the mental part of it for her before she made that shift into her full-time interior design business. I'm glad to speak to that. And I have more conversations from women about how they feel valued. We are so multidimensional. I don't know that our gifts are always appreciated. And I've talked to women who are going to come to you and they're going to share with you in future episodes how absolutely their gifts are appreciated as they get older in the workplace and how they're able to mentor others and the joy that they get from their work. And then I talk to women who say no, who say no. And if you ask me, I'll tell you where I get my joy in terms of my day job. Overall joy comes from the actual doing of the story that I might be covering on a particular person or a particular issue. I really enjoy the connection that I get with people and speaking to whatever it is that they are coming through and going through. And do I feel valued in my job overall? Not all the time, if I'm going to be totally honest. I will say that I feel respected, but that's why I love this podcast. There is more to come, but this episode really speaks to God and mental health and how we get to the place of living our best life. Let's get to my conversation with Lanada Chanel Duncan of BE Decors. Let's meet her. Let's get started and let's start healing. Well, Lanada, welcome.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here again.
Thank you. You look so pretty.
Thank you.
When you came in, I was jealous. I was like, where did you get that tan? But I forgot that you just went to,
still tan?
Where did y'all go to? Cancun?
Yeah. I didn't even see or notice, I guess, when you look at yourself every day. Okay. I just miss my Michelle Obama arms. Everything's getting
Oh,
flabby
you got them.
now.
You got them.
They're in there somewhere.
They're
not doing
very
miles
apparent.
and miles of running and exercising like some people are out here getting it done. I love it. Congrats on all that. You're doing a good job.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to get back. I'm going to start swimming again, I think.
Nice.
I think that might really bring me back.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. You should really just set a goal and plan to do a triathlon one day this year. And then that way you've got a goal or something that you're working towards.
I think it's a lot of pressure. I was actually thinking about that, talking to Jazz about September, but I don't know. Yeah. That's so much pressure. So maybe the following September.
Okay. Our goals aren't meant to be pressure, so figure out how to make it not pressure, but more of a goal.
Right.
Figure it out.
So,
thanks for the wine that helps.
Oh, absolutely. Clos de Bois Chardonnay.
I love it. That's good.
So, how you feeling today in your skin?
Feeling good for the most part. Let's see. Making sure I check myself. Yeah, I think I'm feeling good.
You're feeling good?
Yeah, I've been sleeping better. So that's a good thing. Good. I don't even know what to attribute that to other than fatigue, but why am I so tired? I don't know. But I mean, I think I'm sleeping more soundly. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm not complaining. I'm still trying with everything going on to keep some peace. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's within myself, like internally. So,
my spiritual practice and my conversations with God have kind of an ebb and flow. I'll do something 1 week or for a week and a half, and then I'll shift into something else, and then I might return back to whatever. I am always talking to God in one way or another. And so how would you describe Are you having conversations with God right now? And what are they like? Are you like, God, really? Or are you?
Yeah, but the problem is I don't feel like they're fluent, so they're not like on a consistent level like I would want them to be. And I even feel like he's sometimes like on the side, like in a chair, like around the room, like in the corner, like every now and then just moving himself around in my life saying, hello, I'm over here. Like, did you talk to me about that verse? Just things like that.
Yeah.
So he's like we need to have a conversation. I'm feeling lonely because you hadn't been talking to me, So then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then I'll go. So I don't feel like, even though I feel like I'm doing okay, not putting that first. I need to get back to my meditating. I need to get back to my quiet time and, my yoga, just stretching in the office or, in the she cave at the end of the day. I just need to get back to a routine of that. I've started back walking and that feels so good. Like when I don't walk, I miss it. And I like to walk at the park just because right here at the Chattahoochee, it just... the background, the scenery, it just does something to me. And I like being amongst nature like that in that way. So I miss that. So I did get back to that. But what I'm missing now is that one-on-one connection with God through my meditating, through my just consistent prayer, that intentional communicating every day.
Is it like when you're in prayer and meditation, you get to a point where you feel the oneness of you and God, although we're connected with him all the time, but is it a point where you feel you're mindful, like we're connected right now, and then you feel a communication and exchange?
Right. That's exactly what it is. And I feel like he is pleased because I'm putting him first. And at least it's almost like, when you go about and you make decisions or you go about your day to day and you do things, you feel like I've checked all the boxes to know that this was the right thing to do because I started with the foundation of it, and I'm sometimes missing that when I make decisions or when I have something going on. It's because, I left that box unchecked. And that box is me having that foundational assurance that this is what God would have me to do, that because I checked with him, because so it's like that, and I don't want to be missing that. So I need to consistently get back to that, to where I know as I'm flowing and moving throughout the day that all my boxes are checked, I'm good. So I miss that, and I need to get back to that. And I think that comes through all those other things, the yoga, the meditating, the reading, the this and that I need to get back and check.
Even given all of that, do you feel like your relationship with God is different or closer than it was, say, 5 years ago?
I think it's the same. I think same, but like I said, missing that. I don't know if I would say different or better or anything like that. I would just say there's a piece that's missing. I want to be closer. So if I look at, say, 5 years ago, I think it's probably about the same. But that still means then that I need to get back to that place where it's just overflowing. I want overflowing.
Yeah.
Not to where I'm just this guru of a person that I can't have, just
you're what of a person?
A guru of a person to where it's like, she's so up here that she can't be down here. It's not that. It's just where I feel like my life spiritually is completely grounded and overflowing. And I don't know that I would say I'm right there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, there's so much on a natural sense that's going on physically in our world. And some of that could be the reasons why. All the more reason why then we should make sure we're in tone and back to that.
Yeah.
Because everything that we encounter sometimes in the house is, watching news or whatever, or definitely when we leave the house can take us off that track and off that feeling. So if I'm there, then I feel like regardless of what I'm going to encounter out here, whether through a client or through a situation or, whatever, someone screaming at me because I did something they felt wrong as I'm driving or whatever, I don't feel like it's going to take me off kilter.
Exactly.
And I just feel like, you don't want to feel like you can snap any minute too, because sometimes I say we're all just a situation away from snapping in some kind of way. And that's just what we're living in. Everybody's just snapping at each other. It's just self, me. And if you don't do it, I'm going to snap at you.
Right.
And it's just enough of that. So I got to get level to where that's not bothering me. That's not who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
This past week was a real example of that for me.
Really?
Because I know I've been grounded in God, but I haven't been doing, at least this past week, I didn't wake up Monday morning doing my spiritual practice that I might spend an hour plus on.
Okay.
And so on Monday morning, that was my birthday weekend. And really, my birthday weekend ended about 5 a.m. Monday.
Because we did party.
Yes.
For the weekend.
And then I had to,
nice.
right. And then I had to be up at 8:30,
right.
to go to the mountains
okay.
for this. I told you about this. I had to go to the mountains for this story, and that was tricky.
Okay.
After I got there, and then first of all, I didn't dress right, but I could have dressed worse.
Okay.
So I said, wow. And I'm a person that will dress right for the cold, because even though it's spring, it was cold up there in the mountains. I wasn't dressed appropriately, but I could have been worse. Okay. So there was that. Then the point that I had to go to in the mountains was very tricky road-wise. It was very narrow and scary, and I lost my signal. And
you're by yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I was by myself, and I got to the point where I decided to turn around, and I didn't even know if I'd be able to turn around and get back. I knew if I went to my destination, it was questionable because of if my car was going to make it. Plus, nobody knew where I was. Nobody close to me knew where I was exactly.
Right.
And no signal, everything. So I turn around. I'm still lost. I did see somebody who was able to direct me out.
Okay.
So there was that. I was glad that I had the sense to turn around, because at another point and in another car, I would have kept going, or another point in my life.
Right.
So I was glad that I did that. And then the next day, it was work, and it was just another assignment that I had to do. And then I'm just trying to get through the assignment, because you and I were going to get together that day, that afternoon or evening. At the same time I'm doing that, the shooting comes up on the news.
Yeah.
And then I get swept up in that. And this incident happened where I called your husband because, and I had to think about this later, like there was so many things going on with me. So the incident was, there had been a news alert that there was some shots fired when they were looking for the shooter, and he had gone from the hospital, the doctor's office. He had gotten away, and that he had been at this office building, like 30 miles away, and that there were some shots fired. And so there was no police activity when I got over there, and I was going to leave, but I saw some people, and I asked them a question. They say, oh, you have to go ask somebody in this building right here. And at that building, there was glass shattered. Okay. A glass door was shattered. When you get in the building, you see more shattered glass. And so everybody was nice. There's a lot of activity in the lobby of workers, like maintenance people. And the woman I needed to talk to was on the phone. And they're like, oh, you need to talk to her. And one of the people talking to me, I thought he was a cop. I overheard her saying to someone, this glass shattering sounded like shots fired. So that made me think no shots were fired. But she couldn't confirm anything, because she said she wasn't authorized to talk to me. So I get ready to leave after a minute or so, and she sees me take a picture, and she says, oh no, you can't take a picture, please delete that. And so I said, I'm not going to delete the photo, but I'm trying to let her know I probably won't use it. And so she's like, please delete that. And I said, I've taken other pictures. She just happened to see me take this picture. So she says, please delete that. This is private property. And she tells this guy to issue a criminal trespass alert. And then I said, what are you doing? Because I hear the word criminal. And so I said, are you trying to have me go to jail? And so she says, if you don't delete those pictures, if you're not able to delete those pictures. And then she tells the guy to contact Cobb County for some kind of a warrant. And then she tells these guys to not let me leave. I hadn't turned to leave yet during this part of the conversation. And at that point, I step away, because I'm thinking like 1,000 things. I'm thinking, I don't want anybody to touch me. She's white, they're black. I step away. I'm totally like even keeled in terms of my voice the whole time. I step away, and that's when I tried to call my immediate boss, and I wasn't able to reach him at the moment. So that's when I called your husband. And, he's like, they can't do that, and let me talk to her. And she won't talk to him. She put me on speaker.
Tell them what the connection is.
Oh.
So they're like, what you know? So
all of this is because, don't y'all know?
No.
No, all of this is because with the media company that I work at, her husband is a senior editor and at one time was my boss. And so when I couldn't reach my boss, and I know everybody's so busy with the whole active shooter coverage that I call him because I know I can reach him on the phone because he'll see me and think I must want something. Then while I'm talking to him, somebody takes my picture and, you know, she won't acknowledge him on the phone. She ends up saying I can leave. But what I realized was
she knew you were media.
Yes.
That's what I don't understand.
And I'm making gestures to the one security guy who I thought was a cop. And so I just felt like there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be sensitive to them as Black men. And I'm trying to also understand that I don't know if they're going to follow her cues.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm trying to think about my own safety all in the span of seconds.
Right. And cover this job that you've been sent to do.
Yes. All in the span of seconds. And it was just a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I went to the next place, which was Battery Park, where, you know, all the police were set up. And by the time I left there and had to go to this press conference, I'm feeling like overwhelmed.
Mentally, like
and
emotionally.
Yes, but I'm also thinking about, you know, there's journalists that are miles and miles above what I'm doing that cover all kinds of tragedies, that this is small potatoes. But, you know, I just felt like this was
a lot for you.
This was a lot for me.
Right. Right. Hey.
This was a lot for me in the moment.
Yeah.
And I did feel like God was there because I think right before the press conference, my colleague sent me a note because this is really her geographic territory.
Okay.
And she sent me a note and said, hey, I can come relieve you.
Okay, good.
But I felt like that was complete God.
Really?
That's what spiritual practice is about. It's about being able to be grounded in those situations. I was probably 75%, which is better than less than 50%. But, you know, if I had been on top of everything, you know, I think with what I normally do, you know, I might have been 90 or 85. But I feel like that's what that's about. So that, you know, we get these multiple instances. Because and then I was getting all these notes about what people wanted. I was like, do y'all know what's happening out here?
I know, right?
Like, I'm going to send you the information. Okay, what y'all do with that information? But they want it in this form and that form, and
that related to the incident.
That related to
where you're covering
to the news,
right?
You know, because you're sending them feeds.
I got you.
You know,
I see what you're saying.
They want it in this. Can you put it in this system? I said no, I really can't.
No,
I really said that. I really said no, I can't.
This Adrianne, somebody put her. But, you know, back to the groundedness. Yeah, I completely agree. Moments like that is what it's for. Yeah. And like I said, you know, who knows what that incident looks like for you and looks like for me, because we're all at different levels of how prepared we are, right, for something like that can, whatever situation we find ourselves in. So who knows? God knows my level and your level and what may be a lot for me and, you know, a lot for you. So, you know, however we prepare, what we feel we need, how we feel we need to prepare, you know, when you're missing that, putting it back in my situation, I don't want to be to where, well, and second, first of all, something like this serious, just hearing about it, you know, I'll relate myself to this. We all know, you know, that the incident took place with this recent shooter in Atlanta at the medical clinic at a practice where I used to work. And I didn't hear about it initially. I think you text me and saying, are you watching the news? I'm like, no. I called you. I'm like, what am I missing? You know, what's going on now?
Right.
Kind of thing. And then to hear it, I immediately, and hear that it was a Northside facility at that location, my heart just like, oh my God.
Yes.
Why I just automatically thought it could be that practice, and where did it, any practice would have been awful, but in my head, I literally went to that practice. Yes. And then my first thing is, oh my God, what floor?
Right.
What floor? That's all I wanted to know, is what floor did this happen? Because I know it's only that practice on that floor. There's no other practice on that floor. So if it occurred on that floor, it's that practice.
Yeah.
And oh my God, who? And, then you're saying, well, it's horrible anywhere.
Yeah.
And, but though I don't work there, I'm still, my heart's sunk in, and your adrenaline's going.
Listen,
I'm still connected.
You're still connected to that practice.
You're always going to be connected.
Well, no, let me say
in
this.
that way. Anyway.
You're not only are you connected because you worked there for years and years, but so my doctor is there.
True.
And my
husband's doctor is
right,
still there.
and my
son's doctor is
right, and he was my mom's doctor.
Right.
And the last time I went to him, a few months ago, he's asking me about you.
Right.
So
and
you
I
are still
talking to a doctor too.
And it's not like just like being polite. He's not just being polite, asking me about you. You know,
he just hates that I have the best football team. That's what that's about.
But he asked me how you doing. Then he brings up sports. He brought you up at least 3 times.
Yeah.
During that last visit.
Right.
Okay, so you have a tie not just to this particular doctor,
right,
but you have a tie to this practice.
Well, I'd like to say that there is an appreciation still of my work and things that I've done, and I feel that way. But the point is, it's just the adrenaline that's going and the thoughts that's going through your head, and just the fear of what these people could be going through. And it was just an awful situation. And so I'm now texting people that I know, and, like, what's going, is this Lori, is this the company? Yeah. And then when I finally got a doctor who had deeper connections and to people that were still there and other physicians at that literally that location, we found out it was, and what some of the background story is, it's like, this is awful. And oh my God. And, it's days before they released the names of who, anyway, you can't you can spiritually prepare for a lot of things and have yourself in a place where you feel a little grounded. But when things hit like this on the physical, in the natural sense, you're going to deal with it first in the natural sense. So even you being out here on this road and up in these mountains, and it's a natural sense of fear and things that's going to kick in.
Fear of being shot. I didn't include that.
Snatched, or it could be anything. And in this day and age, it literally could be anything. You could just walk up upon on something and going down and happening. And you know what I'm saying? In any given time, we could find ourselves in a situation where we just never thought we would ever be in.
And well, to what you're saying, the other thing that had me like really feeling sensitive to you was because this is something you think about. You're very mindful of the environment that you're in.
Yeah, some of that comes from where I come from. I don't roll up on anything without locking the door or looking and saying, this could go down. But some of it could be fear too. Like, I don't want to live in that kind of fear on any given day. And, like with everything that, we hear that's going on, just about every day there's a mass shooting now.
There was one yesterday in Texas.
Exactly right. So we're talking 2 days or 3 days after the event that happens here. Now you've got Texas. And so every day, it's not a matter of if anymore. It's a matter of when we find ourselves in this kind of situation, right? It literally is when. That's not a fear I want to think about every day, but I do think about it every day. I have 2 young Black boys that live here in America that drive, that go out, by themselves, that work, that have experiences externally outside of their homes. And at any time now, it doesn't even have to be outside your home. Someone can knock on your door and have the wrong door, right? So anytime I think about my sons, the initial first thought is, oh my God, what can happen to my kids? My daughter, my son, anything, you're right. So we have to have these thoughts every day. You got to be grounded. And some kind of spiritual situation, not to have this overtake you.
Yes, because it is fear.
Yeah,
it's fear that is causing all of this.
It is.
It's fear.
It is. You're right.
Yeah, it's fear, and we have to be mindful of how we treat people.
Absolutely.
So that they don't.
Even if they're not treating you
right. We can't control another person.
Right.
But we do have to be mindful of how we treat another person.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know what might trigger them.
And we should do that anyway, right? But now we have to be hypersensitive to this, right? We have to be hypersensitive to, even if someone is crossing you off and cutting you off in the car, or doing something crazy, and like, do you get upset about it anymore? And can you even look like you're even, because they're going to roll up to you and want to shoot you through these are crazy thoughts, but they're not thoughts anymore. These are realities now that we live with. Todd and I the other day coming down right here in Roswell, trying to get through traffic, and the guy's just trying to go around, and we're trying to drive normally, and he's upset because we're not letting him in or something crazy, and he pulls up alongside and starts screaming through the car and calls him a nigger.
You kidding?
No kidding. I didn't hear what he called him, but he called him something, but he heard him. So, of course, his first reaction was what did you, just kind of react?
Right.
And I'm like, just don't. Now, why can't we get upset over something like that? But now you got to even control how you get upset because you don't know what this fool, I'm going to call him, will do, even though he's in the wrong, all the way around, he's in the wrong. And so we got to suppress even just a normal reaction to something. How we deal with this stuff if it's not spiritual these days without being grounded in some kind of God who can sustain us. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So now we have this situation where people can't control their feelings. They can't suppress their feelings. They can't suppress their anger. This young man showed up to an appointment late. First time appointment. The doctor probably didn't know what he was coming for. My understanding is that he showed up late for a new patient appointment. You don't put in the notes what you are coming for. It's a new patient. Establish yourself as a patient. So you don't know you're turning away a patient because he's late that has mental issues or that's needing something to deal with his anxiety necessarily, is my guess of how this went down, right? But I do understand that this is why he was turned away. Couldn't deal with it. Left, came back, start shooting. Again, any one of us, any given now, we wouldn't all handle being upset about being turned away. But having worked there, in the position I worked in, I've handled many of cases where I had to explain and to a patient why that is our policy and why this happens. And then unfortunately you have staff that aren't trained to have that conversation with an irate person necessarily. They may not be trained for that. It's just a horrible situation to find yourself in, but any of us can find ourselves in on any
because
day.
if not there, it might happen. It would have happened somewhere else.
Went to the drugstore and tried to get something in the same thing. We're all
at
out
that
and we
point.
can't get it. You just don't know. So anyway, we're back to now how we live our lives. And kind of such a fear. What is the rest of that staff going to do if you're now at another clinic, in any practice or any hospital, and you have to turn away? So are you not going to be fearful of what they're going to do?
Right.
So it affects all of us when these things happen, right? All of us in so many different ways. How are you going to now live your life if you're working and you have to explain something to an irate person that you don't know how to do that? So
it's an important
we have to think about that. So if there's nothing that's going to get done about mental health and how to handle people that are, or just how to relate to each other anyway, Adrianne, honestly, let's just stop saying mental health, because frankly, again, we're all a click away from switching.
No, it's true.
In any kind of way, if we're not grounded in something,
it's true.
And it can happen anyway. But how are we just going to deal with each other anyway?
It's true. That's why I feel it's so important to take care of you. Like to take care of me, to be the best person I can be, to deal with my issues. And when I have an issue, when something's going on with me, to figure out what that's about.
And how do you want to handle it as a person, as a kind, loving person? What's the best way for you to go through life and handle people and deal with people?
But if I'm triggered by something, why am I triggered by this? What is that about? Like, to try to get to the root of it. I mean, I'm a naturally curious person. I want to know that. But, it's good to know that, so that I can try to heal whatever that is. I can try to address whatever that is. What scares me is if I don't see something coming. Like, usually I can connect with a person because I want to connect with people. But there's some people that they're just, they're out there. And I remember 2 times I was living in New York. Like, one time I was on the train and I was sitting across from 2 people and they were on some kind of drugs, and I knew they were just like gone. And so there was no connecting, and I was like, danger, but I was only on the train with them for a short period of time. I got to my stop, I got off, but I recognized what the potential was because they were like gone, And then another time, I was in the DMV in New York, and I was looking at this woman, and she looked normal. She was with somebody. She looked normal. But when she saw that I was looking at her whole expression changed. It was like somebody lifted a veil and she just turned into evil. Oh. I mean, I was like, shit. Like, she was like...
It's like she's been uncovered.
She was like,
or
what
discovered.
Are you looking at?
Yeah.
You know, I was like... Uh-oh, you know, so
she knows me. She knows.
So I don't know what it was, but this woman was like, "Bitch, what you looking at?" Those are the 2 times that I can remember where I was like, "Okay, these aren't situations I can necessarily control." Or if something happened with her, I would have to like diffuse it and try to get to that first look I was seeing, you know. But usually, I feel like I can connect or want to connect with somebody on a human level.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not usually in fear, but I'm not thinking about mass shootings when I go out. And but I'm like, damn.
I
should maybe,
like
you know.
We don't want to always have to be walking in that kind of consciousness.
But we need to be mindful now.
Everywhere we go. Now, going into the market, I'm literally looking to get in and get out. Even in the grocery store, and I want to be mindful who's coming through the doors. If I'm in line or anywhere in the front of the grocery store, you have to be aware. I was in the grocery store a few months ago, and literally an argument popped off right there in the vegetable and fruit section between a guy and a girl, but someone else is on the phone and they're just going crazy and screaming. Now, I could hear it before I could see it. But when I even started going that direction, I'm like, why? Why are you even, maybe it's not the time. Take yourself and get your stuff and get, you know, because you know, it's just awareness, but can we have awareness without the fear? And how does God want us to live during these times? How are we as his children to be? A lot of this we are told, even in scripture, you know, through his word and through believing and knowing that there will come a time where these things will become, you know, we call it end time, so to speak, where a lot of things that happen, whether it be through global warming or through whatever, like these will be times that we are to look for signs of Christ's return. In Christian faith, we know this, right? We understand this, we're taught this, and we know that scripture speaks of times that will come. So some of this we are not to be surprised about, okay? But we are also in a human form, walking as spiritual creatures, experiencing these things, having it affect our day-to-day, like we said, our goings, our comings, our children's, our families, all of that. And if we are not grounded, even if we are grounded, how are we still to function in this on a day-to-day basis? So it has to be like intentional. That's why I have to get back to the first part of what I was saying, to that type of practice to where I feel grounded and I feel like I can, you know, definitely in my communications with God or whatever, he opens things up as we do this. You know this on a regular basis. We are even more aware sometimes. Our awareness feels different, right? When we are having a continuous day-to-day, constant communication and relationship with God, our awareness is different. So it's important for me now to really get back to now. So part of that, I get that, like I said, through the walking and things like that, but a lot of it too comes through the meditating, through the reading, through the just quiet time. And I don't want to be missing that because I feel like it gives me a disconnect than what I have to go through every day. And I need that. Yeah.
I'm kind of having I want to say epiphany, but I don't know if it's that. But, you know, I think it's up to us how we get through this. Yeah. And I think that we've become more and more separated since 2016.
Absolutely.
Right? Yep. And which has contributed to this. And, you know, it can get worse. And in 2016, we couldn't imagine we would be here. And when I say 2016, for nobody, to get offended, when we had an election and that election separated, to me, that separated people. I don't care where you stand.
No, absolutely.
We experienced a separation as humans as a result of that election and all the rhetoric of that election and presidency and everything. Okay. And so that separation has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
And to me, this is a part of that.
Yes.
And
if I can just interject something real quick, I don't want to cut you off.
Sure.
But like you said, it's gotten bigger, bigger, and bigger. You know, there's been almost separation on top of the separation on top of the separation. Then you had 2016, then you had 2019, the pandemic, and then you had January 2020. Right. You know, so you have all these episodes of things to further separate us, layers of it.
Exactly. And so I do feel some fear around, because you know what I fear? I fear an apocalypse. Because with no law and order,
right? That's how we get there.
No law and order. You know, you out here on your own,
right? And all of this is an ingredient of
yes.
That.
So I do fear that, and you know that comes from too much TV for me, and you know all of that. But it's up to us if there's a healing or if there's more reckoning. That's up to us and how we handle this.
I absolutely agree.
That's why I do think we have to deal with our own stuff.
Yeah.
And we have to love more.
Yeah.
And it can't be just about my people and my circle.
I agree.
And, you know, I have to love other people and care about other people and try to communicate and understand other people.
Because how can we really have that larger impact if we didn't first get back into that place with ourselves, like you're saying, do that for yourself first so that you can have a larger impact with other people. I don't know how we get to that larger influence of changing things if we don't first check ourselves. People are so selfish now. It is so about self, how you made me feel. How you know, what you did to me, it is so much about self. It's just come down to all of that, which is why people are just flying off, and it's all about themselves. No one's thinking about each other.
Yes.
And while, yes, you do have to, I do feel like self-care and all these things starts at home with yourself. You got to take care of yourself first. It's going to be impossible for us to create the larger and change, influence change. But I'm sorry, I should finish what you're saying,
that's it. You know,
what you said is important.
I would just add that we have to learn how to put words to how we feel. Because when we really are able to speak to how we feel, I hurt as a result of this, and describe that, you know, another person is going to understand that. But if we've got a lot of bravado around that, then they're not going to understand that. They're going to be defensive about it.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So it's about...
Or shut down and don't want to share it at all and just close yourself in. But you're dealing with it internally, you know, and then it comes out. It explodes.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
You're so right.
So we're here because
good pre-conversation.
Right. We're here because I wanted to chat with you about how you came to be in your business, BE Decors, because you were working with Northside Hospital with this practice that we just mentioned, and you were working with them, and I know you were valued. Everybody wants to work for themselves and be independently wealthy and all of that. But for where you were working, I think you had carved out a niche for yourself there, and you were doing some things, and it got to the point where you got laid off. The whole time not the whole time, but a good couple of years while you were working at that job, the last couple of years, you had started your business, BE Decors.
Right.
When you got laid off, and you have to say how many years it's been, because it's gone by so fast. I want to say 2 years ago.
2 years.
And you decided, I'm just going to pursue this full time. I'm going to put all my energies into this. And the reason that this topic is important to me is because I'm talking to women so far. I'd love to include men about aging in the workplace, and a part of that, and being valued in the workplace. And you were valued, in my opinion, from afar. And having these conversations, I'm realizing that so many people, including myself, have something else going on. We have a side hustle, a side gig, another job. So that was going on with you. And we want to talk about what you do for people who don't know.
Okay.
What was it that made you say, I'm going to put all my heart and soul into this full time?
Okay. All right. To add to the background that you've given, let me just add a little bit to that. So yes, I had been with the practice where I got laid off. I'd say really back 7 years. I'm saying back because years ago I worked for a medical practice in administrative role, and I left the practice after some time after my divorce. That practice later I went back to. That is under the umbrella of the hospital system that eventually married with this practice, and they became affiliate with. So when I went back to that practice, now they're affiliate with a hospital, and that's how I got with the hospital system. I go back, I get in management, and then while I'm at that practice, about 4 years, I transfer to another practice, which is the practice we were referring to. Transfer in management, work there for about 4 or 5 years, and then I decided I don't want to manage necessarily people anymore. I wanted a different role that will allow me to do different things, take some skills, and work in another role. So while in that role, absolutely correct. I felt appreciated in the role by staff, by patients, by, physicians, all of that. And I still had this passion at the point to want to do my business. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I always tell my kids, even as I was raising them, always have a plan B. Have something else, where you can eventually work for yourself, So I was planning this in my mind at some point to be able to pull away and create the type of company that I wanted to create, where I could really touch, I guess, people's lives through interior design. And so I created that business a few years prior to the layoff. And, you're always planning. When things get here, I'm going to go ahead and see if my husband, we can agree to, me stepping away and going full time into the business. So there was always this plan to do that at some point, work in the business part time, and always feeling like there were meetings I couldn't go to. There were things that would happen for interior designers that would take place during the day, but I was working a full time job. So straddling the fence, late night hours, because I had to work the business after work or on weekends. And so, there was all that, but I loved doing it because this was leading to my dream of having a thriving company where I could, again, do what I wanted to do. And so when the layoff occurred, it was totally a surprise. I just go to work one Friday, things are going fine, and I'm called into my supervisor's office 10 o'clock on a Friday and told, unfortunately, this is after the pandemic, things had slowed down. Actually, I said 2 years, not even quite 2 years yet. It's 2021, October the 8th.
Wow.
I got the date.
I feel like you've been doing your own thing for like 2 to 3 years.
I was doing my own thing for 7 years.
Yes,
so again, this company was 5 years old at this point,
right.
5.5 years old. But I wasn't quite ready to completely pull away and do it full time. I wanted to, my whole heart wanted to. I could build my clientele, do things like that, but I wasn't financially ready even to do it at this point. And just my psyche, mentally, I don't think I was, I guess if I was thrusted, I'm going to make it work. That's just my personality. So this happened on October 8th, 2021. Okay. Yep. So I'm in shock. I'm just like, wow. And I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts going through your head, of course. And then I have to go home and tell my husband I just got laid off, and we're not, again, in a position to where we can afford to lose an income. But there's this little voice under there, I think all of that's saying, oh my God. Yes. This is,
yes.
That's what we could do, Lanada. He was like, you could do this, and you could do that. And, thank God we were on our way to our vacation for a week. I had vacation planned anyway, and this happened on a Friday. And I had to that Monday to tell them. They gave me the opportunity of taking severance and leaving the company or being transferred, because again, I'm under this hospital system, and this is just one affiliate under the system. So what they do is they could find you something else within the system at a different practice. You don't know what that'll be. It has to be equivalent to your role, so to speak. But I had gotten out of management, mind you, again. I was in another role that was a leadership role, but not necessarily managing. And I didn't want to manage people anymore anyway. I wanted to manage myself. That's it. But you still don't know what that's going to be. Yeah. You got to get used to people, another practice, another manager, or your supervisor. So there was a whole lot of ifs, and those ifs did not outweigh me, but it still came down to, we got to talk about this as a family. So I will just forever love my husband for being so supportive and saying, we're going to be okay. We'll get through this. Maybe this is your opportunity to. And when he said that, I was not going to let the opportunity go. I was like, I mean, he's like, we got to work.
Right,
we can't
right,
afford
right,
not
right.
to, but this could be your
Yeah.
chance to, take this and run with it. And I thought that's all I needed was that green light.
Yeah.
I knew at that point. I'm not
And
going
you
back.
were getting a little tired. You were getting a little frustrated.
I mean, with certain things here
Yeah.
and there, absolutely.
Because you had appointments, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You would have
to take things on my lunch or take the PTO and take it on vacation.
Busy.
And so things were trying to pick up, but I just couldn't do it. And I was devoted to my job at that, know, so I had times when I had appointments with physicians to take them to certain places, and we'd go out marketing and doing things with patient advocacy. So I liked my job, but my passion, my heart was growing towards interior design in my company. And so, I knew at that point, I just was spending the time that month till that Monday. I was buying, I was just to return the.
Can I go back for a second? I'm trying to get to why you love interior design so much.
Yes.
Because, and you have a taste that, me and your clients love. I love what you love. Okay.
We love what we love.
So, yes. And so I'm trying to get to your passion for interior design because before interior design, you were always like trying to find your own thing from when I met you. I know you were doing real estate for a while, and I'm trying to remember what you were doing other than that, because it wasn't just real estate. It seemed like there was a couple things.
Entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes,
so
and I know you had a PR firm, and so
divorce, so that was,
So what was it about interior design that you were like, you found the thing? This is it.
That's it. For me, it was one. The difference that the transformation made in people's lives, in their home, in their experience of enjoying home. And that meant a lot to me because I personally went through that with my sons after my divorce with my first husband, having to recreate home for me and two boys. I had my boys by myself at the time, and just having to reestablish a home for them and recreate that feeling of security and safe haven and tranquility for them as they dealt with mom and dad not being together anymore, and what's life going to look like. And, we come home from school and things just feel different, and weekends are different. Sundays are different because we were like in the church. He was a pastor, and, we were always running. So now Sundays are different because we don't do that anymore, But, So, and just my friends come over and I got to explain, it's just so recreating that. But this is the safe place, that feeling of home when you didn't have a lot to, because the divorce took me through things financially. And so, just having to make do with what you have, but make it look beautiful and feel safe. That was important to me. And I wanted that type of peace and tranquility to come through in my work. And so a lot of it dealt with just, I wanted people to know what home should feel like, what with everything else, again, that we go through out here in life that we can't control. The things that we can control is how we establish and feel in our homes and create that feeling. And so I love being able to do that through interior design, realizing still that creating the peace within yourself is important, but then how you can create the setting that helps you love and enjoy home, that experience of being home more. So that became like what was driving me, is just, I want to give people this feeling. I want to help people feel at peace in their home. So it was all about the peace, cozy, this and that, and having people enjoy home, And that started driving me from the products that I would pick, from, the type of clients that I was getting. I love working with single moms at the time, or moms that was doing this for their kids or had found themselves in different situations, or just women in general that wanted to have that feeling, wanted to just enjoy their space, wanted to have a space where they could curl up and be cozy and practice self-care. So that was just all about what it was at first. Now, over time I've worked with families and then men too, but my passion, my love is to help women be happy, at peace, at home.
Yeah.
Then you can go out there and do the other stuff. But I want you, when you come home, you need to look forward to come home. It's like whatever I'm dealing with out here. Oh, but when I get home,
Right.
when I walk through my doors,
Right.
and so I loved hearing the scream. I had friends that would let me do their spaces, and I had one friend. She went out of town for the weekend with her sons, and when she came back, while she was out of town, I redid her home. And when they came back, they walked into this transformation, and they called me, and all I could hear was her and her son screaming on the other line. And I just sat there and I cried because that's what it was all about. I loved hearing the screams of joy, So anyway, it was just a lot of that, knowing that I was helping people feel good.
Is there a struggle in just being in business? A struggle that you do turn to God about? And you're like, I need your help. I love what I'm doing. I want this to work.
Yeah.
I need this to work.
That's a good question. Very good question. Absolutely. All the time are the absolute answers to that question, for sure. Two things. Let me quickly say something that changed too when I made the decision to not go back and stay with the company and then do my business. I had around this time while I was working, started dealing with anxiety and panic attacks. Some of it was when I was in management, and a lot of it related to job being very stressful in different ways. It was a great job, but it's still a stressful job. And then I was at the time dealing with something personal with my son. But while that was getting better, I still was in a stressful position. So that was one of the reasons why I decided, let me change roles. And thank God they allowed me to do that and accept me for that role, which I was really good in. And I'm saying that because they've told me, and I agree. But still, that was there. Some of it was there. I, not long before, gotten laid off a couple months before, had literally had a panic attack on the way to work. Didn't know why. Came out of the blue, driving right past your way, right here where we're sitting, and a few blocks away. I just started, my chest was pounding hard. I was losing feeling in my limbs, and I had no idea what was going on other than I thought I was going to die. I made it to the quick trip where I was able to pull in, but by then I literally thought I was going to die, and I'm screaming, and all I could do was lean on the horn so that someone could be aware that I'm dying. And right now I'm dying. And I could press the button to call my husband on the phone in the car. I had it, thank God, where it came up. He's on the phone. I'm leaning on the horn. People are around the quick trip are looking and running over to the car. And I remember the two women that ran to the car, and I'm like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Long story short, ambulance comes. He races down here, and out of the blue, panic attack. And there were some things that my doctor was having me do, but internally in my mind, I knew this is work, because there's nothing else. Literally at this time, life is, I am trying to do my business.
Meaning like you knew it was your job.
I knew that this is attachment to this anxiety. Now, mine, I began to start really learning how to recognize, because I never thought I would have a panic attack, or I was a type to have them, but there's no type to a panic attack. I learned that later. But I realized I had been having like anxiety from certain things when I was in management, but this was the second time I had a panic attack while at that company. And the first time was while I wasn't managing, and it was after hours. Thank God there was a doctor there, because I did have to go to the hospital that day. This day I did not. But it had to be something that had to do with my work.
Yeah.
Working there, or my work. But fast forward to now, I'm making this decision not to stay working there and to leave and do my own company. One, I haven't had one since.
Wow.
And two, my anxiety has gotten a whole lot better. I still have a
feeling. Well, you're very
protective
like of yourself. You should emphasize that.
I am.
Yeah.
And I know when to say no and when they say yes. There are things I want to do, but just when I'm at my limit and I can't do any more this week, and I don't want to do anymore, and I want to just kick back the rest of the week, I do it. And I don't feel guilty about that. So I've had to get more protective about my time and what I do and say yes or no to. But I really feel like a lot of that had to do with, I don't know, living up to, or whatever it was that was attached to working there. Now, while I'm marching to the beat of my own drum, there are still stressors. Yes. But I've learned how do you approach them, being, key. And I like working in a situation where my success depends on me. Yes, I need clients. Yes, I need people to say yes to things and this and that. But for the most part, still my success depends on me. And I just like that because I can always bet on myself. If I can't bet on nobody else, I know what Lanada can do.
And you can do what?
Well, I feel like there is a level of creativity in me. If not, I'm going to turn around and I'm certainly going to make it to where I know how to connect with you and with whoever to let you see that what you have is special. What you have or what you can have, no one else can have that but you, and we can create that together. And I love having those kinds of connections with people and turning it into, it has to do with your living space. Let's do this. Let's form this together. Like, let's play around with this, to where I've had clients that couldn't say things, but I felt like I need more from you or something you're not getting from me. And then when we go hands on and I say, something's missing. Let's do this together. Their eyes open up and they feel like they've come alive again, because when they thought they couldn't say it or couldn't express it, once we did it or I showed them that it's there, they just feel, and that just, now I can do this again. Now I got the energy to go let's duplicate this and do this again, whether it's with them or someone else. And so I prefer working in the background. I've always been that person. I want things to shine, and we're going to get this. It's going to be nice. I don't need to be out there in the front to do it. I want to feel appreciated. But I like working back here to get that done, to make it shine and to be. So I've always had this personality where I want people to feel good about themselves. They used to call me the peacemaker and the this and that, like in churches surroundings. But so that's always been there. But I think through the business, I feel like I'm able to do that more on my terms.
Yeah.
And I love the flexibility. When there's a meeting or an event, I can be there now. I can learn and develop myself, because I didn't go to school for interior design. Back to your answer, because I'm going to talk forever and not answer that question.
And
you asked me time.
No, keep going. Yeah, because there's a couple things I want to bring up with you. Go ahead.
You asked me about God in that. Yeah. And I think that it comes from, again, deep down the underlying, and I don't promote this like this, but the peace that I want people to have in their house, to me, it's the only peace that God can give. I already know that, right?
Yeah.
Because I do feel like it starts with you.
So it's through you.
It's through you.
Meaning it's through you.
It's
Lanada.
It's through
the peace that you're able to provide is coming through you from God.
So God's working through, I feel, my talent and my skill and my vision or whatever. God is working in that, and I'm able to give that to someone else. So that, but I don't promote it that way, because something that may freak them out. But I know that for myself. So I do feel like, in a way, I'm pleasing God.
Mm-hmm. You're half answering my next question, because so God is working through you. Part of your purpose is what you just described, your God-given purpose.
Absolutely.
And do you agree that God is also healing you in different ways through your work?
Through my work, yeah.
Yeah,
but I have to be careful with that. I learned this recently at this networking development group, business development group, because when I talk sometimes to people about what needs to be created or what they're trying to achieve, I get this ugly face. I call it the ugly face.
Yeah.
And that's what I call it to them. And they're like, why do you call it the ugly face? Well, it's a face that I make kind of because I'm really like into this intense thing of what I'm doing. And so it's the ugly face. But I think it just attached to this passion I have for it, because it's so important to me. Like, even talking about it, I could literally almost shed a tear, because it does take me back in a way to the feeling I so wanted after the divorce again, and sometimes during the marriage, but I so wanted to have this
your first marriage
level of peace, the first marriage, right? A love of peace. And I so wanted to create this, and I so wanted to have these experiences for me and my sons. Now that I'm married again and my situation is completely different, I still don't want people to be unhappy in their living. I just don't want people to not love where they live. Mm-hmm. To me, I just feel like home is all you. It's what. It's
so
all
what
you
are you
have.
saying? You just said you have to be careful in saying.
Well, because I don't want to dwell. I don't want it to be like I'm so still connected to that it's just about me healing. It's not. It's about.
Well,
that,
yeah. I mean, you definitely explained
so that's something
that.
I feel like
But
I'm done with that.
as far as what you just said about like your first marriage and what you so wanted, it's such an example to me of how God works and how our lives can work, because now's the time, being on the outside watching, now's the time. And then your relationship with your husband, you both create, you both are creators. You know, he supports you, not just in, I support you. I mean, you both redid your home,
and now he's doing the art, some of the art that we're putting up, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, you both will like redo a couch or make a table. Or, I mean, you both will be
part of that.
You know, are intertwined, which is a sign and example of his support for you. That's like the best of everything to me, to have a partner that supports that, and then you know you can thrive. And when I say supports that, it's a supporting, and you know, he's engaged in it with you.
Right. He's been more engaged. I've made him pick up screwdrivers
and he might not
put things together. He wants to be less engaged if he's listening to this.
Says that, but
he's like, can you less engage me?
Right. And I'll be like, yeah, okay.
But he has a good vision and a good eye too, because I mean, a lot of times when I create a mood board or put, you know, the 3D design rendering together, especially if it's for a male client, I call and get his opinion, and he's like, no, not that.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
And he has a really good eye, so he does.
Exactly.
He does help me. He says, I'm not a partner. I'm not. It's not my company.
He's a consultant.
But, you know, he's a consultant. That's what he's like. And can you give me a fee, please, for that? So
before we go, I want to say, I'm sorry, I'm just inspired to say this, and I don't want to be dramatic, because I'm going to be dramatic. Maybe.
Just don't make me cry.
But, you know, when I was going through I'm shifting a little bit. When I was going through my kidney stones ordeal, and, you know, my friends really helped me in one way or another, whether it was Ganesthesia, Stephanie, Teresa, Rhoda.
I'm so glad I could be. Wasn't working. I could be there for you, because I can move my stuff around.
When I think about you, it was, I swear, I felt like it was a terms of endearment moment for me. Have I told you this before?
No.
Because when I went to have what was I there for? Oh, in the midst of the kidney stones thing, I had scheduled an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, which is a whole nother story. But when I was there in the waiting room, like, you took me, and then Teresa brought me home. And so when you took me, my back was killing me from the kidney stones, and I was in so much pain. And I felt like you were saying, she's in pain. Can somebody help her? She's in pain. And, you know,
I go hard for my friends now. You can't be having us sitting out here. She needs to get back there.
This was in maybe I'm thinking about this because I was just thinking about this yesterday. Like, it's got to be really bad for me to complain about pain. Like, I think I can take pain, you know? And then when we went actually into the examining room before they take you into where they're going to do the procedures, you were just so on top of it, and I just felt so loved. That's all I want to say. I just felt so loved. She said that she needs this. She needs this. She needs this. Are you going to do this? This is what she needs. You know.
Well, I hope I wasn't bossy, but you know,
when you were Fort Worth, and I just felt like you were Shirley MacLaine. You know, thank God I was not in a situation of Deborah Winger, but you know, I felt like you were out there shouting like, it's time.
But I wasn't, y'all. But she just felt that way.
What'd you say?
You were in pain. Everything felt like shouting to you. I wasn't shouting, y'all, I promise.
Yeah, you were.
I had been a little more aggressive.
So we can end.
Y'all don't know who y'all have in this chair. Y'all need to.
Okay, let's end with, today, are you a healer or a seeker?
I've answered this before. I don't know if it's different. I think it's always going to be the same. I'm sorry. I think the answer is always going to be the same. You can ask me every time, but it'll probably be the same. I feel like I'm a seeker. I'm always seeking to grow, to develop, to, you know, like I said, I'm seeking to go deeper with my back to being grounded in my relationship. So I'm a seeker of all things comforting and peaceful right now. Like, I hate drama, like, to the core of my being. Now, mind you, I can go there anytime. If I need to, I can at any time go there if we need to go there. But I hate drama. If we just talk through things and deal with it, we could get through anything. So I just don't like discord. and I just like to deal with stuff so like we can move on. Now, mind you, once we deal with it and move on, we're good. It's just, it never happened. But I just don't like how we are as people now. But I'm seeking solitude and peace from things that causes frustration and anxiety. And, so that in that I'm a seeker. I'm a seeker of all things that peaceful, whatever.
Right. And I'll say you're a healer through your work.
Thank you. Clear enough. There's nothing else that needs to be said to that. So I'm a healer through my work, and hopefully I want to get better with my healer through my friendships and my connections and my engaging. Like you said, like if nothing else, I still want my friends to know I'm there for you. I'm right. It's right or die.
Right.
I may not always do it right or do it perfectly, may scream a little bit to other people, but it's only because that right there, so it's like a little bit of that.
Right.
But it's probably a lot of that, but that's just anything I feel passionate or connected to. I'm there for it.
Right.
That's it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me to do this and getting me to open up again about stuff.
Thank you for joining us. You can listen to all Let's Start Healing episodes on traditional platforms. That includes Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. Remember, we have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. Until next time, let's start healing.